Welcome to the Deep Dive into Agile Marketing Podcast with your host, John Cass. Together, we'll take a closer look at the ins and outs of marketing through an Agile lens. You'll learn from interviews with top Agile thought leaders and practitioners and gain fresh new insights for your journey. Let's get ready to dive in.
Welcome to the Deep Dive into Agile Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, John Cass, here in Boston, Massachusetts. Today, I'll be interviewing Dzmitry Hryb, who is a strategic marketing leader and advisor. He's been working at Deviniti for the last 6.5 years. Welcome, Dzmitry. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here, and thank you for having me.
So let's start off by going a little into your company background and how many clients, countries, and Deviniti works with around the world.
Actually, Deviniti is a non-standard software company, I should say, because we've got 6 different business lines spanning across the partner products, our own products, and our own services, such as custom software development. So when it came to our own marketing department, we turned out to be an in-house agency, serving a fast-growing company because we had like 40% of average yearly growth, about 50 products and services total on the portfolio, and the 10,000 total customers all around the globe. So the scale was really big. At first, we didn't really know what we fell into, right? So that's the company background. And in 2020, we created the marketing department. We merged 2 different teams that appeared across the company at different times, so we could become a fully fledged marketing team. We were a team of 10. And our job was to deliver every possible type of project, from like a series of social media posts up to organizing the Jira Day, our yearly conference, an offline event in Warsaw, which gathered the Atlassian software practitioners, enthusiasts, admins, and partners from all around Europe. So you can imagine that it was a pretty hard challenge for us.
Right. So could you tell me about Deviniti's marketing department's journey using Agile Marketing next?
Yeah. So this journey started, as I said, in 2020. So like 4 years ago. We worked with Agile from the very beginning, actually, but it was a very simple implementation at first, because we started from scratch, and we wanted to prove that we can deliver anything working in this way. So basically, we needed an inbox for collecting and processing work orders, so to speak, or our current backlog. We needed place where we could plan our sprints, our 2-week sprints, and proceed with the tasks and complete them. And we needed an outbox to hand over and accept all the completed work together with the reporting. Being an Atlassian solution partner, obviously, we had this all modeled in our Atlassian toolset. So we had Jira software with 2 basic boards in our project, and really simple workflow, like to do in progress done, right? And also we had a service catalog created in Jira Service Management, so we could track like the incoming orders from our stakeholders. And then we would meet up like every 2 weeks in the beginning of the sprint, and groom the backlog and like pick the cherries for the upcoming sprint, with all the stakeholders, including the CEO. So our only KPI and our only metric that could prove our efficiency was plain sprint burndown. And it wasn't a very efficient thing after all, because it doesn't tell us anything about the actual value of the work we're doing, right? So like that was the first iteration, right? The first part of these things. Also, we had a couple of problems with the way that we plan our sprints, because only like 30% of the tasks were commissioned by our own team. When you have a 2-week planning horizon, it's not. It feels like really short for marketing, because it lacks the project perspective, it lacks the strategic perspective, which should be there from the very beginning. So we started to looking for a way to improve, and the second iteration was about waterfalling the agile. So basically, what we had in our 2-week sprints was like short production side agile loops, and what we've introduced next was the macro loop, which is all about like a project or maybe a contract that you are doing with a business line, which is a quarterly plan for something that we do, and which can be broken down in those 2-week sprints later on, right? So we had micro loops and macro loops, and suddenly everything gets a timeline, So we know that to organize an offline event, we need 1 whole year. So this is like a yearly cycle. To plan and execute a marketing funnel from scratch, we need like a couple of months, maybe 2 quarters. So we plan based on this, right? So we actually achieved this longer perspective, and we could finally start thinking in a strategic way. We could finally start thinking in a project-based way. Meanwhile, we were keeping the 2-week sprints, and this still helps like motivate the team and help them understand what we're doing right now and what we're doing next. But also we tried not to lose this high-level overview of what we're trying to achieve, what are our goals, what we're doing this for, essentially.
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Just to clarify, Dzmitry, on the small loops and the macro loops, how did that differ?
So, like I said, a macro loop is like hosting an event, or creating a full funnel, or creating a series of videos on a given topic. So this is like a bigger deliverable or a whole project. So yeah, this is business line based, of course, but it's like a bigger overview of what we're doing, and then we can take this and separate it into the production loops, which are our 2-week sprints. So basically, it serves as a breakdown of our ongoing work in the scope of our bigger projects.
What was the experience of using Agile across the teams, managers, C-suite, and contributors? How did that experience impact adoption?
That's an interesting question, because that's an interesting situation. Actually, we work for a software company, so everyone grasps at least basic understanding of Agile, because we are working with the product heads, with sales leaders, with subject matter experts who actually implement those tools and those practices for our customers. So those people knew even more about Agile than we did, and we had to educate our team on the Agile principles, because we hired people from various backgrounds. There was someone who came from the fashion industry. There was a former English teacher who came to our team as a content writer. So basically, they had to learn this from scratch. And this was a big part of the onboarding process for our new employees. So out of like 6 or 7 onboarding meetings, 2, I guess, were about our way of work, which is Agile, and the tools, which is Jira. So I conducted all these meetings with our newcomers. On the other hand, our stakeholders and the people who worked with outside the marketing team knew something, at least something about Agile, but we had to educate them about marketing. This is a continuous education process that's really ongoing and never ending, basically, because it was a bit easier to explain how much time it takes to organize an event, because when we had it already planned and executed. So we had an example at hand that we could show and say that's how it works, right? So each iteration, each new project, each improvement served as some kind of evidence to us that we could show to our stakeholders and the people we worked with outside the marketing team, and treat it as a reason to tell them more about how marketing works, so we could work together effectively.
Just to dive in a little bit deeper there, do you think that it helped with the outside stakeholders having that understanding of Agile? Do you think it made it easier? And that you had made the point that really the learning process was them learning about marketing, but were they curious about how to apply Agile to marketing? And also, did they understand that there might be differences between their experiences, perhaps in development, when it comes to the profession?
Oh, well, you know what? It definitely helped us in a way that you can't come to the board of directors, to the CEO, and tell them we are making something that will take half a year. But if you break it down into 2-week chunks or anything like this, it becomes more digestible to accept or to review something. Also, these kind of breaking down the process into the smaller chunks, especially paired with an appropriate tool, really gives us the transparency that we need to achieve in order to push these projects through. So, well, I would compare this to chewing your food, right? You absolutely can eat the whole steak, but you need to cut it into smaller pieces just to make it easier for you, right? So that's how we approach bigger projects with Agile principles in marketing.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Robbie Samuels hosts the On the Schmooze podcast. Robbie, tell listeners what to expect from the show.
Since 2015, I've interviewed entrepreneurs who overcame challenges to achieve success in their field or industry. Tune in to On the Schmooze to listen as I ask deep questions to elicit untold stories about leadership and networking.
And where can people subscribe?
Find the show at ontheschmooze.com or on marketingpodcast.net, or just search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard them. Go subscribe.
What's your perspective on the use of project management tools used in marketing to support Agile processes?
Well, I think they help a whole lot. Basically, there's a lot of tools on the market right now I don't want to be biased at all, because I had at least some experience with a couple of them. But actually, we always try to tell our customers that the tools are secondary to the underlying processes. Because if you don't know how you want to work as a team, buying a tool is no help to you, right? So first you should figure out how you want to work to be effective, and then you can adjust some tool, be it like Atlassian or Mondaycom or Asana or Airtable, whatever, maybe even Microsoft Excel. Many companies start with this, just to support this workflow that's comfortable for your team and the other people you want to collaborate with.
What have the key stumbling blocks to adoption of the use of Agile marketing been that you've seen in the company?
At some point, scaling the team and scaling the operations was a huge blocker to improving, because we just realized that the tools we are using don't fit our current processes anymore. They are just too simple, and they lack lots of things that we need to do our work well, or that our stakeholders lack in terms of transparency, or maybe cost tracking. The CFO came in at some point and demanded like billable utilization reports, right? Because we are an in-house agency at a software company, so they treat us as as an agency, right? So they want us to track billable hours and report on this, and be able to prove efficiency. Basically, we started to rethink the whole approach once again. This time more in regard of the tools we are using, because we already knew that our processes are working. We asked our Atlassian Services team for help once again, and we did like 10 or 12 hours of workshops to help them understand what kind of projects do we have, and how do we want to report on this working time, and what kind of transparency is needed for our team and for our stakeholders. And we came up with full project portfolio management based on Jira software, and we added a couple of custom fields that could help us track the cost types and the beneficiaries of basically every little task that sum up on the project level on the very top. And we also had it integrated with other tools we used. So we had a so-called project trio of tools, right? So everything we used was basically to serve one of three purposes. One is planning, tracking, and reporting on the actual planned work. The other is the collaboration space. And the third one is all about ongoing communication in our meeting schedules. So these are the components of tool stack that marketing teams need to go forward with their projects, right? We achieved a couple of very nice things with this. The first one was the macro overview of all our project portfolio that we had publicly available in our Jira. It was sortable and filterable per beneficiary or like the team working on this particular project. So basically, we sent out like custom links for everyone and said, here are your projects that we're doing for you, right? So anytime, instead of asking us on Slack, how's it going, just go there and see it yourself, right? This also we realized that we were working on 44 projects at once as a 20-head team. That was like a miracle for me. And the second thing was the micro view or the sprint planning overview, and it had like resource planning features, so we could actually start estimating our work in the upcoming sprints in the actual working hours, because we've collected the data from our time tracker, and we could have like average estimations of what a standard deliverable takes us to deliver, right? How much time does it take to produce a blog post? How long does it take to host a webinar, right? So record a podcast. So we already had those average values, and we could compare them with the same values after we implemented the project portfolio. And it turned out that billable utilization went up 20% magically, because we were not doing anything with our processes. We just changed the tools and the way to measure these things. The average time to market for our deliverables went down 60%. So basically, it just took a transparent overview of what we're doing and a slightly more accurate approach to planning than before.
Do you think, as a deep dive there, do you think that people use those metrics to motivate themselves to figure out ways to improve the efficiency?
You know what? Efficiency in marketing is not only about how you spend your working time. It's also about the business effects of what you're doing. And it's mostly about the business effects of what you're doing. So this helped us to maybe justify costs, or maybe be more able to set expectations about this thing will cost you this much, right? But I think the very procedure of going to a sprint review and then to planning every 2 weeks and saying things like, we did this chunk of work, so now there's another one, is very motivating for the team, because they are never stuck. They always know where we are in the project, because we have rituals, we communicate with each other, we have transparent reports, and they know what they're going to do next, so they don't lose track of this bigger picture that some people have to have at hand to be able to work.
What do you see as the big problems with the marketing profession? For example, MarTech adoption and resources, and a focus on customer insights and building customer journeys, the rise of generative AI was a hot topic. Those are some ideas, but how would you describe the issues in the profession today? How do you think, in your experience, marketers can organize themselves and prep for challenges they face, and their professional identity as promoters of the marketing concept?
I think agile marketing can be a good solution to many inefficiencies or many problems that we are having in our jobs. For example, you mentioned customer journeys, and this in itself is a very iterative job. So when you're starting out, you have no customers, so you can't have any idea of what the journey looks like apart from your experience or your colleagues' experience, or maybe someone personally that's from your target group. So you put in a lot of guesswork, you put in a lot of basic research, Reddit. There's a lot of inaccuracies in the first kind of projects like this. But when you start getting some customers and you analyze the feedback from them and you analyze how they navigate your website, you start asking them how they buy, why they buy your thing. You can use this information and this feedback to iterate on the customer journey, and then on all the materials that you produce that make this customer journey easier for them. Yeah, that's one thing. And as I already said, the concept of breaking down larger things into smaller chunks really helps. No one really does big bang releases today. at least in the software industry and in the IT industry. Everyone is agile. We've got DevOps, we've got continuous integration with like thousands of micro releases per day, automated and streamlined. So marketers just have to keep up with all this, because if we don't, then we are the bottleneck. So that's the kind of thing that just pushes us towards like faster and more agile solutions and more agile processes like this.
What advice do you give to other marketing leaders in adopting Agile for marketing?
The first one is to start small. That's about that idea of macro, bigger agile loops. So you start from something smaller. You're building a car, and you're starting from like just 4 wheels and something between them that can ride. You don't even have an engine, but you have a skateboard. So that's your first iteration of a car, right? And then you learn from this experience and you start selling these skateboards, and you actually learn from the market how they approach this, and they tell you maybe you could put an engine on there. Oh, well, so let's do an engine then. So that's how you approach like software products nowadays, and that's also how you should approach marketing, because the big bang approach is also very risky, because if you are wrong in your initial assumptions, then the whole campaign, the whole budget, and the whole time is wasted, right? So if you start small, if you collaborate in an iterative way, and you improve and you pivot and you change directions when needed, or maybe build up on something that already works, your chances of bringing your company to success are much higher. So I think that this is the advice I could get. And of course, be patient, because in marketing, effects always come with a time lag. So if something doesn't work after 2 weeks, maybe we just have to keep going and just wait until it happens, or maybe come up with some kind of improvement that can help us do it. But if you're just starting, I think you shouldn't expect anything to work from day one, because there's a low chance of doing this. Maybe if you're lucky, but it's always nice to have a plan B.
That makes absolute sense. So, Dzmitry, thanks for joining us on the deep dive into Agile marketing with John Cass. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much, John. Have a nice day, everyone.
My thanks to Dzmitry, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Deep Dive into Agile Marketing Podcast. Be sure and subscribe to our show and leave a review to let us know what you thought of today's episode.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising, because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.